Absolutely.
Yeah, appreciate that, Peter. Thanks.
You're live, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, welcome everybody. Today is April 11th. This is our weekly county commissioner meeting. This time I would please ask everyone to rise, say the pledge. Ed, could you lead us, please? Go ahead,
I
Ed.
pledge
Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, Sherry, for doing that. Everybody get a chance to look at the agenda.
It's too hard to hear.
Any additions or corrections? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda for April 11th.
I second it.
Moved and second, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. We'll get right into our agenda. Our first item today is an action item. These are the claims, order the claims, and I didn't see any junior college, but you should have got that from, God, it just went blank, Rita. I just go along, there's a big blank spot, you know? So if there's any questions or
I'm
I'm
concerns,
invisible today.
everything goes blank every
Too
now and
much in
then.
my brain to remember.
And Ed, this is the time where you can kind of go through the bills. And if there's anything you don't know what it is, this is the,
Okay,
Have
I
to dig
see,
it out.
there was a huge bill that I remember here.
And believe me,
Can
I
find it.
still ask questions, so
Yeah.
always ask, because that's the only way you learn.
there's lots of acronyms in here.
All of the PILT funding,
Yes,
so those are all basically emergency purchases if we're doing PILT. Is that? I had another,
Didn't show any
I didn't see any
built
built.
ones
This
this
time?
claim period, Commissioner Moffitt.
I saw a lot of them.
The title, excuse me, there's quite a bit of Title III.
Let me go back, because Jeff had PILT, Scott had PILT.
Doug, I had a more question for you than maybe Rita, but I'm noticing quite a bit the last year or so, the coroner budget's gone up. Are we keeping track of that? Because I think we're gonna have to bump that.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, of course, we're.
You guys are watching them, because it's kind of
Getting
changed
some
over the
more
years.
people coming up here, maybe.
Well, and I think he's doing more
Investigation.
investigative work into them, so we're getting some more charges there, but.
Yeah, I think I've blown this somehow. Sure, could you send me that, please? I thought I stored it here, but I'm not finding it.
Commissioner Allen, the
And you-
claims were, I emailed them to you.
Yeah, the one that Gabriel sent us earlier for some reason. I'm not finding it, and I don't understand why.
I did send them to the commissioner's email as well.
Unfortunately,
I didn't know
Commissioner
if he
Allen
got-
doesn't, but I forwarded it to him on Friday, I believe.
I think I had it, I just,
I just sent it to you again.
okay, thanks.
Well, there wasn't any PILT. I could have sworn I saw PILT.
We had some big pilt last claims. It's just mainly fire-wise this time.
I'll look, if I still have questions, I'll ask, but
Did you remember on the copy machine or the postage machine, we put down another 10,000? Isn't that about 30-some thousand a year?
I believe Casey told me that it's about every 4 months, so that would be about
Okay,
right.
okay.
And we're in the midst of the election, the May election, so we've got a lot of
we
postage
have
going
to-
out right now.
We have to prepay that.
Yes.
50,000 a year for
Did we?
postage.
50?
I'll get this organized. I thought I had it kind of worked out, but it'll work out. All right, thank you.
Did you want a hard copy of it? I do have
No,
that.
I've got it,
Okay.
thank you. Okay,
And Rita, the Jared Zweigart, that audit, it's 19.3, was part of that EMS.
No.
So it went from 18.6 to 19.3 this year. Huh?
Correct,
Mhm.
because we had the fairgrounds.
Oh, okay. So that will probably go back down next year? Or are we gonna
No,
do the fair
It's
next
gonna
year?
be included. I think
Okay.
the plan was to include the fairground each year as well.
You remember what EMS was?
EMS is 3,000, but that comes out of
Their budget, right? But, so that's getting up there now again too. Wow. Everything's going up at my wages.
Ready or?
Any more questions? Ed, are you good
Um,
or no rush?
okay, kind of, so we need, do we need to review them, by department, or what are we looking at? I mean, I went through them yesterday and looked them over pretty carefully, I thought. And, it's a couple of things of really of interest came up, and but people are vendors that I didn't even know would be vendors for any of the stuff, you know,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. So I'll work out that as we
We
go
look
along.
at it, well, I look at it as far as, so once you get used to reviewing them, things are same every month.
Yeah.
I look for those anomalies where there's a new payment, or I'm questioning which
Right.
general ledger account it's coming from, where that payment comes from. I'm not gonna lie, it takes a while to get through these, and
Yeah,
poor
yeah.
Casey that was there before Rita, and now Rita gets my questions almost every month, so therefore take time to review.
And if
but-
I don't know, Doug does.
Yeah, exactly.
you know.
And that's the way we familiarize ourselves. When you go
So-
through these and you see something that pops out.
You know, like for instance, I'm curious about at least one vendor that kept showing up in here was Idaho First Bank, and we spent a lot of money at Idaho First
Well,
Bank, and I
That's
just,
our
Those are
debit-
debit cards for each different,
yeah,
each different
so that,
office.
yeah,
And so there are some purchases that, they just need to make. And so they
so
have
that's
to
our
reimburse
official
their debit.
banking, banker.
Yeah,
So instead
exactly.
of having a credit card
Uh-huh.
It's
and
gonna be our last
potentially having
engine.
late fees on a credit card, they
Should be
switched
about
probably 3 to 5 years ago, and
have
now
three,
One and
three
departments have a
pending
debit
cases
card.
right
Well,
now.
do we?
And
Three
that
left.
is taking those debit
Glad to
card
get through that.
purchases and actually putting them into the correct line items, into the correct general ledger line items.
Okay, 'cause I mean, I don't understand that part of it that well, but I couldn't help being curious about some of that just because I didn't know. I don't have that history.
Yeah, so, we just have different vendors. So, we do have an Amazon account, and there's a lot of purchases. That's one that is reoccurring. You'll see a lot of it. And every department is responsible for putting in a claim and pulling that money out of the correct line
Yeah.
item fund.
Right. I
So,
think that answers that question. I just go, God, how comes that shows up in almost every department? With
Yeah.
fairly
and
good
they're all
amount. Yeah.
separate. Everybody has
Yeah.
their own specific account for that.
They all have limits on their cards too, so they can only spend so much without coming and getting approval to do that.
Right.
Okay, if there's no more questions, I'd entertain a motion to pay the claims, and we have some board order claims, but I don't see any junior college.
No junior college.
I move that we approve the claims and board order claims.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries.
I love my glasses in Washington, everybody. So if I'm squinting at you for another week, that is true. I'm squinting at you. I got home and I was looking through my purse going, oh my lands, how did that happen?
Thanks.
I'm just gonna let you have that, and you can look through it a little easier.
And then we all
And
sign
I've
off
got
on
it.
that. This is our approval for those.
Yeah,
claims.
what I did was, I was moving stuff out of my regular email into this starred email. I thought for some reason it didn't come up. I didn't think I lost it when I swapped it, but,
And then anything that's a board order, something that
I thought it was supposed to sign in blue here, Sherry.
I don't,
It gets scanned into the computer system.
I don't
anyway,
know
so-
that matters a whole lot anymore. Everything is technology.
Well, I was told, we gotta do blue.
You told me a lot of things that I don't listen to.
These aren't gonna create a job.
And those are out of specific funds and they have to be approved.
Just so you keep me in the loop. Okay, we all good?
One more.
Thanks, Rita. Have a good day.
Thanks.
We're gonna move on down our agenda. Our next item are elected official reports. Our first one up is June. Good morning.
Good morning. I really don't have a lot to report. I have the 2 new appraisers at school this week in Boise for a week. And then I have 3 more employees going down for 2 days for an urban renewal class. And Anthony is trying to finalize our values. That's been a little bit of a challenge this year. Interesting market. It just doesn't seem to stop. So the appraisers were out in the field last week, catching up on fielding, and the ones that aren't at school are back in the office, catching up what they fielded last week. DMV's doing good, and the front office, we're just moving right along. Kathy is training regularly with Lori. It's going to work out really well.
Awesome.
We definitely need a little extra help in there with all the new subdivisions and everything coming on board. Lori's been a little overwhelmed. Kathy's taken to it naturally, so that's been very helpful. And Laura is doing cross-training with Dee Dee, and she is learning how to go in and do some of Dee Dee's job. So we are making progress.
Have you guys calculated new construction yet?
No,
That comes out in June.
that'll be in June,
Yeah.
around the end of June. But no, they're still out. That's what they were out fielding last week. And when the weather gets better next week, maybe they'll do a little bit more. But our cutoff date is, I believe our cutoff date is the first part of May. The second week in May, we have to have everything to Dee Dee by then so that she can start doing our closeout for the year, and we can get ready to start getting those assessment notices ready to go out.
Okay. Any questions for June?
I don't think so, thanks.
Thanks, June.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Next one up is Doug. Morning, Doug.
Good morning, Commissioners. Just to begin with court, we do have 2 courts taking place today. We have district and magistrate court. So we have a busy court calendar scheduled for today. Sorry if I can't hear me.
Yep.
We have begun work scheduling the meetings with the department heads and elected officials to begin budget preparations. We have those scheduled for the next couple weeks for our initial meetings with the elected officials and department heads to go over their requests. And then we will begin setting our actual budget workshops with the commissioners, probably the end of April, first part of May. So we're in full budget preparations for fiscal year 2023. Elections, as the commissioners are aware, we have an upcoming election. We have hired a new elections coordinator that is going to be a shared employee with the treasurer's office. He will begin May 3rd. His name is Rich Robinson. So we're excited that we do have a new position, and we're grateful that the treasurer's office is allowing us to have a shared employee. That funding at this point in time will come out of the treasurer's budget, but we will we'll budget for that for fiscal year 2023. I don't know what if it will come out of the treasurer's line or if it will come out of the clerk's. But again, we're excited to have Mr. Robinson on board as of May 3rd. Just to share, for elections, he'll primarily be in our office, but when it's preparation for taxes, then he'll be working in the treasurer's office, as well as kind of just a floating officer or a floating employee. So we're excited to have him on board and excited for that position.
I have a cousin named Rich Robinson.
Interesting.
Is this
Probably
guy
not
from
the-
Utah?
No, he's nope. Other than that, we do have it on the agenda to schedule our public hearing for the budget. Commissioners, I would propose that we set our public hearing for August 29th at 1:00. I know there are 5 Mondays in August, and typically the commissioners would cancel one of those Mondays. I would just ask that the commissioners meet on all of the Mondays to give us an extra day for maybe a full day budget workshop, just to finalize before our hearing. But we would propose that the commissioners do a motion to set the public hearing for our budget presentation to the general public on August 29th at 1 p.m.
Okay, everybody good with that? If so, I would entertain that motion.
At 1 PM, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I move that we approve the budget date for fiscal year 2023's budget to August 29th at 1 p.m.
I second that.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Okay, anything else?
Just a couple reminders, commissioners. We do have the clerk and commissioner meeting scheduled for Rupert. If you are not registered or if you want to register, I would highly encourage you to do that. I believe that there's going to be 2 days that the commissioners would meet with the clerks, and there's going to be 1 day where they meet alone. But just a reminder that the IAC Commissioners Clerk Conference is, I think, June 6th through the 9th in Rupert. If you are not registered, I would, and you want to go, just a reminder to probably register that for that sooner than later.
I am registered. So it's on the 6th. We're gonna have to go down that day. Are we gonna need to cancel a meeting that day?
We might, good point. Or we could just do a morning meeting, or we can cancel the meeting.
Is it a Rupert or Burley?
Burley, excuse me. Yeah,
It's the
sorry.
Burley
It's in
Western
Burley.
Inn, yeah.
Best Western Inn.
What's the date again on
I
that?
think it's June 6th through June 9th.
And is there anything on the 6th on their agenda, do you know?
I'll have to look. I don't remember if it
It is, but
starts
I can't remember.
that day or if it,
So maybe we could shut the 6th meeting down, the commissioners down at noon,
potentially, yeah.
and then leave after that. We'll have to make sure.
I'll
we
have to
set
take a
that
look at the
agenda.
agendas.
Usually that's kind of like a Spring Institute one where they kind of train new guys, or is this?
No, that's completely separate. There is
Oh,
a
okay.
separate one for that as well. And I don't remember what the dates for the spring meeting, IAC meetings are.
So maybe
Last
we
year
could
it
all
was in-
share a ride down or something, take a county vehicle and
Yep.
all go.
last
I
year
haven't
it was in-
registered yet because I thought it was a Spring Institute, which is kind of training.
Yeah.
And it would be a really good one for you to attend because they kind of teach you a lot about what you shouldn't do as a commissioner. And
Actually, Doug, it's 7th, 8th, and 9th.
Oh, is it? Okay, so we can meet
Okay.
on the 6th.
7th, 8th, and 9th.
So
Last year, the one in Coeur d'Alene was really instructive because they had iCrimp there, so they talked a lot about training and how to protect your insurance investment. I mean, there was a lot of training last year. It was very instructive.
That's all I have, commissioners.
Okay,
Thank
any
you.
questions for Doug?
just, okay, one, just final thing on that is
Sure.
6th through the 9th, and then, so on a Monday meeting on the 6th, what are we looking
It
at
is the
possibly?
7th through the 9th. I just looked at my calendar.
Oh, it's the 7th.
Yeah.
Well, we probably go down the afternoon
Just
of the
going-
6th.
Yeah, okay, fine.
We could have commissioners that morning.
Yep.
And then jet down all together after, or you can drive your own rig if you can't make it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Okay, thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Brian Oki. Mr. Prosecutor.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the
Morning.
board. Nice to see you all. Things have been busy in the prosecutor's office. We just completed a jury trial. It was Ashley's first. I think on the criminal side of things, it's certainly not my style, nor would I suspect it's Nagel's style to celebrate victories, but acknowledge that Ashley handled that case very well, very professional, and a huge asset to our office and our team. Is really the message that I would send in that regard. The criminal work that's being done by the prosecutor's office over the past year, I think, has been exceptional. And I think they've got a good process and have handled both their workload and the cases that come in front of them. So I hope the community is seeing a difference, and our streets are a little bit safer for everybody. So I was very proud of Ashley and how she handled that case. I know Mr. Nagel was as well. On the on the office side of things, we're identifying some training for both attorneys and our support staff to help improve their skills. Making a kind of setting our calendar for the summer to give them opportunities to go and improve their skills and be better at their craft. We are in the process of putting a pencil to our budget in anticipation of our meeting with the clerk's office coming up. And so we are discussing that and working on that. On the civil side, same report as before. It's busy. Some of it's busy with things that are I anticipated and planned, and some things come across your desk that you just have to make adjustments for. So I have been very busy. I think we have a few things on the agenda in the today and upcoming days to visit about to help work through some things. So look forward to working with
We feel your
you.
pain with that, Brian.
Pardon me.
We feel your pain with that. Some things we
Yeah,
expect, some things we
absolutely.
don't.
We get to share in the workload on a lot of these civil issues, and so I'm sure that it takes a lot of your time and attention as well. So it's just a busy time. There's obviously the assessor needs some help with some requests for tax exemptions, which I'm always happy to do. Those are projects that I'm happy to provide some input on. A lot of spring work and summer work coming up that has agreements and MOUs associated with those things. So I am taking a look at those. One of the bigger projects that I am working on, and I am going to be circulating this today, is a cover sheet with some instructions on contract development and contract management. I anticipate and would like to see the clerk and the IT director's participation in that process. So agreements that are being formulated will be reviewed by the clerk and the IT director as well to ensure that it's not having unreasonable impacts on their departments, or that they have an opportunity to weigh in before they're presented to you. So I'll get their input first, and then to you as the board to review. One of the things that I'm identifying, and I'll certainly need your approval to implement this, is that for each department, there's going to be an administrator assigned to each contract. So that person, whoever it's going to be, whether it's the department head or, it'd be up to the department head to identify who's going to administer or be responsible for that contract, but make sure all of the deliverables are accomplished throughout the term of the contract. And if there's reports that are required, that those reports get provided to you in a timely manner. And in order to really do that effectively, there needs to be some training associated with that. So I'll take the lead on putting that training together, but would like to have the input of the clerk's office and the IT director and anybody else that you feel would be appropriate. So I worked on that last week. I've got that in a form where I feel comfortable I can circulate that first to Doug's office and to Jeremy's office, and then later to you for approval. So probably, if we can get that done next Monday, I'll have that as an agenda item for you to review, and we can have a discussion about that. So all in an effort to try and I think the goal or my objective in putting this together is that these agreements that we're negotiating, we're signing, they have really an entire calendar year's tasks that are associated with that. And so there needs to be some structure in how we are managing those agreements to ensure that, like I said, all the deliverables are being accomplished. So that's one of the bigger long-term projects that I've brought up at this report before. I'm coming to a point where it's time to launch this thing. So that's the report from the prosecutor's office. If you have questions, happy to entertain them.
I don't have any questions, but last week we talked about canceling the impact fee study, and we didn't really look at that contract to see if we need to notify Galena. Is there a 30-day, 60-day?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some bills coming in, so we might have to go back and rethink that whole decision. But the other point I wanted to make too is I appreciate the energy you're trying to do to get these things a little bit more simplified for us. The thing that I think it's going to do for me is it's also going to create a list, like all the IT software agreements. I mean, there's so many of them that you kind of lose track of what this is really for. And I think this would be a great way to build that list. And so if we need to, if somebody new coming in kind of needs to know where we are and where we're headed and what's next and timelines, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. As far as the impact fee agreement, wasn't quite sure how you wanted to handle that as far as today's discussion. I know that there's some interest. I've been getting some inquiries from the Star News. I know that you guys probably have as well. So it's an issue we need to get on the same page over. As far as agreements in general, it became fairly evident to me that a lot of contracts and MOUs are put in front of you on Monday mornings for you to sign. And so the volume of those contracts is huge. And so if there is a method that we can administratively improve the way that process is handled and give you more and better information so you can understand what it is that you're signing and the commitments that are being made are being followed through on by the department heads is ultimately the training and the kind of the training goal that I have in putting this together to really help department heads function a little better if that's appropriate. So.
Well, and I think for Ed's knowledge, code kind of lays out that we can only do contracts on an annual basis. We can't do 2-year or 5-year contracts. Right. Some we can, like solid waste, you can do 10-year contracts, but so a lot of this stuff you're going to find each year it's a repeat of last year's contract. And what Brian's going to do is just make it simple. It's the same money, same contract, same deal. Everybody signs off and we know that we're okay. Because if we can get that set up, it saves a lot of work and a lot of reading on our part.
Right.
Believe me, you can read contracts all day long trying to keep up with this job.
And he enjoys it, we don't.
Right.
And he enjoys it.
Well, and I too, I want to acknowledge a little bit of growing pains with respect to my method of reviewing these agreements. There's a couple of agreements that are on today's agenda that I think are renewals from prior years that we maybe need to, we need to have a more thorough discussion about those agreements. And my recommendation to the road department on those was that I would advise not to move forward with signing those agreements as they were written and submitted for my approval. I didn't get them in enough time in advance to make the modifications to make them acceptable. It's just, the window of time that I had, that's the best that I could do. So when those agenda items come up, I'm happy to explain where my advice is coming from. So,
Brian, so that they don't get lost, is there a technology tool we can use? Like, can we do a centralized calendar for contracts? So, and just give everybody access to it? Or what would be your recommendation?
Well,
Are you going to keep that?
I do know that the clerk is keeping track of anniversary dates on the contracts. It's something that he's kept me in the loop on when things are coming up for renewal or review, if there's a way to have an outward face on that so people could interact with those, that would be great. I think that in addition to that tool, I think it is one of the tasks that I would recommend or request that the assigned contract administrator be responsible for. They've got to be actively managing that contract throughout the entire year, including keeping the prosecutor, the clerk, and you informed that this is coming up for renewal, and maybe even have a discussion in advance on, is it going well? Do we want to make adjustments? Do we want to put it out for bid to see if there are other vendors out there that could do a different or more efficient job? Those kind of things that a month before those expire, those conversations may have to happen. And that's kind of where I want your input. Do you want that to be a task of my office or the clerk's office or that contract administrator?
So on the cover letter, it'll list the administrator of this contract.
Correct.
Great.
Yep.
So we know who to go to if we need to
Have, right.
Perfect.
Name, contact information for who the assigned administrator is going to be. And one of the tasks I hope I'm not biting off more than we can all chew is that they've got to go through the training to go through all of these issues. So, I'm just not going to throw people into the fire without having the tools to be successful at what we're asking them to do.
And I'm fine with that, as long as the clerk is tracking it, if their office is tracking that, as long as it's a centralized location somewhere and it's not disseminated out.
And Doug's been great about keeping me in the loop on when things are coming up for review. So
On the conversation of the impact fees, I would really like to have a session with the fire departments that are doing this, do some kind of a work, something. or
Isn't
other.
theirs already done?
No,
Somewhere I heard or thought or read or something, she completed theirs and she was just working on the counties.
I understood
I
that
could be wrong
Cascades
there.
was
I
done,
don't
but
know where I heard that.
I don't think McCall's is done yet.
So,
And I have questions too on whether, we are two separate boards. We excuse ourselves out of the commissioner board and reconvene as the MS board.
Mhm.
So, decisions made at one, do they impact the decisions of the other? But I would really like some feedback on what they are looking at as far as EMS funding. And I've asked both fire commissioners to provide that input to us. What is it that you're looking to purchase with these funds? How would you utilize these funds? And I think that, doing a work session where we have open conversation with them is important. I feel bad that we did not reach out prior to that vote. That's my fault. I'm the one that put it on the agenda. I take responsibility for that. But I would like to follow up with a full conversation with them.
Well, and to kind of add to that discussion, Sherry, I've been thinking that, depending on how much more bills are going to come in, to me, maybe we're making a mistake here. Maybe we should let her at least complete the study and see what that impact fee would end up being, just so that we can maybe someday down the road, future boards could use that as this was done back and this is what they came up with. Even though we don't proceed with the actual implementation, we would at least know kind of what that impact. I don't know. I hate to
So they
shut
have
something
to
down
be
halfway down and we, and not get the real good data.
Well, I guess a couple things that I can add to the conversation. And the first is, I looked at the agreement. It really was a work proposal that was provided by Galena to the board, which in essence we signed and turned that into a contract. That agreement did not anticipate or have any early termination provision in it. So it's something that I think that I highly recommend that we need to have that conversation with Ann Westcott about what her expectations are and what her willingness to work with the board is, because there really was no meeting of the minds or agreement between the county and Galena as to what the consequence of an early termination would be. It's a conversation that we should have. I imagine that the Star News is listening to this, and we're kind of touching on some of the questions that Max was asking to both you, the board, and the prosecutor's office to clarify. Secondly, the issues that I think has kind of come up as a result of this is a question that this work session that you're proposing with fire chiefs can help run to ground and identify, because it's this board that's responsible for managing the EMS district. Your decision to go in a different direction with respect to impact fees may very well have an effect on those EMS, that the EMS component of the impact fees. It's kind of a weird dynamic where you've got the fire districts that are ran by a separate governing body from this board, but it has tasked the Valley County Board of County Commissioners to run the EMS districts, which you've done by entering into a cooperative agreement between the board and the fire district board to run EMS. So there's kind of a little bit of a gray area there, but having them at the table where they can, raise their concerns. But one of the things that I think you need to remember when you have that conversation, if it is ultimately your legal responsibility to run the EMS districts, and your rationale for wanting to rethink these impact fees is the structure for managing the funds that are collected is going to be a challenge for the board. This EMS, an impact fee for EMS, is still going to be your responsibility to manage those funds, and there's still going to be an increase. So we need to talk about that. If there's a legal angle to include or modify the cooperative services agreement with fire districts for them to manage the funds, that I don't know. I haven't had the time to research that, but that's the part that I wanted to just impress upon you, is that statutorily it is your legal obligation to manage the EMS district that has been created. And so an impact fee that's collected on their behalf, as it stands right now, would be this county's responsibility to manage those funds as they are collected.
Well, and I think Sherry makes a really good point. I think maybe we can get a hold of the chiefs and Ann and all of us sit down and have a work session, an open work session on this. My feeling all along has been that the county collects the money from the district, and we manage the funds and split it up between the three districts. But their commissioners, the fire districts, are the ones that actually control where that money is spent.
Right.
So we have kind of two groups here trying to run the same show, and causes a lot of heartache.
Right, and that is absolutely true with respect to the property taxes that are collected that funds those various districts. The impact fee issue would be obviously a separate fund and a separate process for managing those funds, on top of the property tax assessments that are being made on behalf of both fire district and the EMS district. You'd have this additional source of revenue that would have to be managed just a little bit differently. So it's adding another layer of complexity to how those funds are going to be both collected and managed.
And I don't know if you guys have actually read some of the report that's come out of the EMS impact study, but most of the recommendations are to combine leadership. The chiefs all into one, and of course the fire districts, everybody's not only no, but hell no. And so there's a lot of that study I don't think is really going to go forward because it's not politically popular with the folks. But to me, in the beginning, when they set up the fire districts, they really didn't fund them high enough to start with when they formed that district, and now they're playing catch up. My question all along has been, okay, if they wanted to do an override, a levy, to raise that levy, does the fire commissioner make that decision, or do we make that decision?
And how do we do that? Because that's my question.
It's
too,
never
is how do
been
we adjust
really
that levy?
asked before.
Yeah.
And so we need to sit down and really clarify some of this stuff with them. And I think as soon as we get the study back and we can get everybody together, let's have a meeting in here, in public meeting, and talk about it and work it out.
And let people come that are really strongly
Yeah.
supportive or, against impact fees, especially for an EMS district.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I hope I haven't gone too far here with this dialogue, but I know that there's a lot of public interest, and you certainly want to do the right thing, and to the extent that you can revisit the decision that was made last Monday, open the conversation, and have the impacted folks weigh in on that. I'm happy to help where it's appropriate. So.
Well, and I'll try and get a hold of Garrett and Steve and Juan and see if, when they're kind of thinking about this meeting, and then they get a hold of Doug and we get it on the agenda and give it an hour and talk about it.
Just to let you know, I did email them over the weekend.
What did
because
you?
they've been emailing me directly. And I just said, let's try and put together a meeting for an open
Okay, so
conversation.
I'll let you continue on with that if you're doing that.
And I think that's a good conversation to have, but I think a good accounting of how the property tax assessments are being utilized and where, if and where those are inadequate, it should be part of that discussion as well.
Great,
So
great.
one of the, I'm just trying to kind of get really something just kind of clear here. We voted last time, and I walked into this without much background with this, but we voted to rescind our process of impact fees.
Just to stop the process.
Stop the process. And I guess is that a sudden death? I mean, obviously, if these people are working on impact fees, and then we don't even have authority to go to development agreements. I mean, we got a void in here, right?
There is a short-term void, but we would
Yeah,
not have been
and-
able to collect impact fees anyway until, probably the first of next year at the earliest, because there has to be some other strategic planning done. You have to have, in order to do it, you have to have full CIPs, which are capital improvement plans in place. So those are still being developed. Recreation needed a full strategic plan to do a CIP there. So that process is at least a year because she hadn't even put together the board yet to address those. So we're on hold one way or another as far as the process goes.
Yeah, well, what do these guys do in the meanwhile? I mean, if they're dependent on, these funding for, they've been traditionally getting here.
No, they have never received this. This is
Never.
all new. And their funding mechanisms are, I'll send you a report.
Yeah.
That report shows that their first negative impact, as a matter of fact, McCall doesn't have a negative impact for their current funding sources. Cascade does, and it falls in 2025. So there's some time here to develop what the correct funding structure is moving forward. And that's what we're trying to figure out. They're funded currently through a levy plus property taxes, their own fire district funding, as well as they receive income from the insurance companies when they go out on a call. So there's a full breakdown
Grants, I'm sure.
report
Yeah.
from 2019 that I'll send you.
Okay, I just, anyway, it's kind of confusing when you kind of going, well, I'm voting for something. I'm not quite understand what's going on, and I'll
You're gonna
first
feel
to-
like that for a long
first to
time.
admit that, but you can't, yeah, but I
It is.
can't you just can't just say here, go, oh, yeah, that's fine. And then you hear the news coming back at you going, what'd you do to us here? So it's kind of, anyway, when you get into this, this deal, county versus districts, now the fire departments all are a district, and am I correct in that?
Correct.
And they have a levy process.
Yes.
And so we're asked to collect that and disperse it to them?
Correct. Yeah, fire districts throughout the state are independent governing bodies. So
Right.
they are standalone. They have their own boards.
Right.
And the role of the county with respect to fire districts is collect the property tax
Right.
assessments and distribute that to
Yeah.
the board. Now, in contrast, an EMS, like the Board of County Commissioners has the authority to develop an EMS district within its county, which this county has done.
Mhm.
The managing board for the EMS district is the three of you.
Right.
And
But it's a sole and separate board.
it is a different board. It is a
And
separate
we
board,
contract with each fire
Correct.
district to manage the EMS.
which makes sense. that the most technically competent and capable group of people to manage ambulance services probably within your firehouses. And so you have developed and implemented a cooperative services agreement with each of the 3 fire districts within this county to manage the ambulance services throughout the county. And so they're the boots on the ground that make sure that they've got the trained paramedics and the ambulance to provide those needs. But ultimately, it's up to the EMS district board, which is the 3 of you, to correctly implement that. So there is a little bit of a bifurcated process, I guess, in how those are managed.
So you're saying that since we do disperse that, that income from levies and stuff, that we're the best option as a governing board, EMS board, as opposed to finding another,
No,
elected board.
What I am suggesting to the 3 of you this morning is that we need to evaluate that with the input of the
Of the
fire
fire
district,
districts, right.
fire district boards,
Right.
and then you all can make a decision about what adjustments, if any, you may
Yeah.
want to stick with your original decision, or what adjustments, if any, you want to make with respect to how suspending the study for impact fees will be handled. There's an alternative way to fund that, or if you want to rethink that.
So essentially, it'd be a work session to try to decide if we're stay the course, modify.
Right. And my understanding, without really looking at the proposal from Galena, is that the fire district was evaluating both the fire district as the fire district to be eligible for impact fees, but they included the AMS part of that as well in their study, not in the one that you took action on last Monday.
Okay.
To
Well,
me, I look at it the same thing. For school districts, the county sets that rate, collects the money, and gets it to the schools. Now, if the schools decide to do an override, that's their call, not our call. Is that correct, Doug? Is that kind of how it works?
That is correct.
Yeah.
That's any taxing district, though. I
So,
mean,
yeah,
would
we
go
do that for cemetery districts, we do it for different
If they
districts.
are wanting to levy more than what the limited amount is and they wanted to do an override, each taxing district would be responsible about taking that matter to the voters for approval.
And in order to increase that levy rate, Doug, do you know, it would have to go back to the voters for an.
For an
increase?
override,
Yeah. Oh,
yes,
yeah.
to go above and beyond the maximum amount that they can levy for.
But an override is only good for 1 year, 2 years. So to change the initial levy, it would have to actually go back out and have a whole.
You would not
number.
be able to change an initial levy, anything above and beyond that maximum amount would need to be approved by the voters, which would be considered an override.
Which is a 50% plus one approval, do you remember? Or is it
It's a
60?
I don't
super
recall.
majority, I think, on an override, 66 and 2/3, but
But I
like,
do believe, Mr. Chairman, you are correct. I believe it is
you know,
a super majority.
but like Cascade School is gonna go out for an override to build a new, or hospital, to build a new hospital. So all we would do is collect those funds.
And they're not going for, no, that would be a separate bond that they're
Oh,
going
that's a
for.
bond, okay. And that's like a 20-year, they make that decision when they set up the bond, how long you collect it.
Right.
Okay, any more questions? We gotta move on.
Lots of conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian, for all your work. We're getting there.
thanks, Dave.
And we're gonna move on down. Sheriff's not here, so we're gonna go to treasurer. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Pretty much the same old business going on in the treasurer's office. There's one thing that I wanted to update you on. I had a gentleman contact my office a few weeks ago inquiring about a piece of property that Valley County owns that we acquired through a tax deed in 2011. The property went up for auction and did not sell in the auction, and so Valley County still owns this property. It's a very small parcel located in the city of McCall, 0.122 acres. It was owned by the adjoining 7 lots. And when it went up for tax deed, none of those 7 owners wanted it. And so it defaulted. The county maintained ownership of it. And then they did some due diligence in 2012 to contact, many of the adjoining property owners to see if they wanted to purchase it from the county. Per Idaho State Code, Title 31, Chapter 8, Section 808, the county can sell this property without actually going through an auction. I brought this up to Commissioner Mopin last week or maybe the week prior. We have a campus planning committee meeting that was supposed to happen last week, but got postponed until Wednesday of this week. And we plan to discuss it at that meeting, but I wanted to make you aware that someone was inquiring about it. They're interested in purchasing it. I don't know if it's in the county's best
Is
interest
this
at this
on
time.
Commercial Street?
It is
Parkdale,
on
okay.
Pinedale.
And it's a little strip right along the edge of the road, isn't it?
Yeah, it's, I've got a photo here of
So
the
what
plat.
I suggest you do, let's get it on the agenda, give us an idea, get the permission, and then we can vote yea or nay here. I think it's great. It gets it back on the tax rolls and we get a little tax. Cindy, you got your hand up?
January 4th of 2021, you made a motion to give that to the city of McCall,
That's where I was going.
and all they had to do was create the deed.
And they never did.
And no, but they're in the process of doing that now.
Are they?
are.
They are, okay.
Okay.
So we were looking at a potential workforce housing also, and that might be what City of McCall's gonna,
No, it's for snow storage.
Uh,
It's right, it's at the intersection of 5 different streets.
it's right here. So Lardo's is right here, Rio Vista comes into it, Pinedale comes into it.
Right
So,
behind Lardo's, isn't it?
yeah, it's down that street on
Okay.
Roland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just on the corner.
But that was my question. What, I think Cindy answered that. Does McCall want it? I mean, it seems like that's more important to them than us.
Yeah. I was unaware of that.
Yeah.
So, I would run that down, Johanna, make sure McCall is actually gonna do it. Maybe give them a date. We need this deed by,
Yeah, do you remember who we worked with at City of McCall?
I do.
I'll get their contact information from Cindy.
and then if
We'll
it doesn't
figure out.
happen, then we could go back to this guy and maybe offer it to him. Because it's off the tax rolls now and it'd be nice.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
McCall doesn't want it, put it back on the tax rolls.
Or
Yep.
work with a developer and put housing on it.
Right, I know Commissioner
it's big
Mopin
enough.
expressed interest in potential workforce housing or using it for something like
I
that.
thought it was a really skinny.
0.12.
0.12, but the other 7 surrounding lots are even smaller than that. So I'm not sure what it would be useful for, but it's at least worth discussion. And if it's not, we're not able to put housing on it, we could sell it for money to potentially develop workforce housing.
But I think we're past a requirement that we need to auction it because we already offered it in the letter to all those landowners. So I think we've covered that part of the law.
Correct. So we can, the section of the code says, should the county be unable to sell at a public auction or any real estate or personal property belonging to the county, including property acquired by tax deed, it may sell the property without further notice to the public by private sale upon which terms and conditions the county deems necessary. So.
All right.
All right, I'll look
Okay,
into the history with
Yep.
the city of McCall and figure out. But I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Good, good.
Interesting, because they have a huge parcel that's the extension of Pinedale Street to put snow on, if they want to put snow on, so.
Well, and there may be such a thing, McCall doesn't want it anymore, doesn't want to do the work, and if it fits into this guy's development for employee housing, then I would certainly encourage that over just parking snow on it, but sounds like it's already been decided, just never got the work done.
I think in any case, it's really important that McCall get involved in this discussion because it's in their city.
Yeah.
And they need to kind of have maybe a place at the table on that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Any change of subject, how many are you down to on tax?
So we've had 2 more pay off, and then I've got 2 that are in, it's kind of an interesting situation. I'm doing some research on their common space within a subdivision, and there's no subdivision board. So that's a work in progress. I'm not ready to update on that yet, but I would be down to 33 at that point.
Okay.
So we've sent all of them off for title search with a litigation guarantee and building a list to send out certified letters. The due date to get the certified letters out is April 29th. So we've gotten about 80% of those addressed and ready to go to send
Good,
out.
good.
So
Sounds like you're on top of it.
trying to get it down to 0.
Okay, anything else?
Nothing else from me.
Any more questions for Janet?
Now leave her alone.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we're gonna go to department heads. First one up is the net. Good morning.
We're starting to pick up some. We are down on permits from this time last year. We're about
Could you,
16
Anna,
down.
could you just please speak into that? I'm having
sorry.
a hard time hearing.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? Okay. We were down on permits from last year. We had 59 last year at this time. Now we're on 43. But doesn't mean anything. Our classes went well last week.
Good.
We've had our first footing and foundation inspection, yay, so it's gonna go. As you're aware of, Jody, or P&Z and us share a car, okay, share the Durango. Last Friday, she had a flat. We need to know what the protocol is when you have a flat or you break down on a Friday.
I thought the protocol was if it's not available, you use your own personal rig and then we reimburse your mileage. Is that correct, Doug?
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think the question that Annette is asking though, she was out on the road with the county vehicle and there was a flat tire on that vehicle and what the protocol is on contacting the road department or an individual to assist with this type of scenario.
There's nobody around on Fridays. I've had it happen to me.
Even
Doug,
in the-
got
There's
ahold of Doug one
nobody in
day.
the road department on Fridays?
That's a good question.
So what would a normal person do in that case? Wouldn't you just call a local wrecker or service, road service and take care of it? What would we do differently?
That's up to you guys. Yeah, I don't.
'Cause
I know
these-
I've broke down or had a flat tire. Once it was by Doug's house. He came and changed it. My husband's came and changed it on a Friday. What do you guys want? Do you want us to change it? I mean, we can do it. We just need to know
We ought to
what.
have roads.
Yeah.
There needs to be
service.
somebody on call with the road department if we have an emergency that they respond to, in my opinion.
And there is both the supervisor and assistant are supposed to be on call 24 hours a day in the road department. So, but if there's nobody there to answer the phone, you're gonna have to call them on their cell.
So just get their cell numbers.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's an interesting dilemma.
Don't
Don't
we
you guys
have,
have, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ed.
yeah, don't we have some sort of agreements with, all the different services around the country for a variety of things, like, for instance, fuel, we get fuel, don't we, through services?
It's all done through the road department.
Through
They
motor pool.
manage the entire motor pool.
Well, I can see a little bit of a bottleneck there. Why don't we just fix it up so they do like everybody else? When I come down here last Monday, my wife had a flat. What she did, she went down to the local place and had it fixed. Why wouldn't that happen to us?
But if you're so far out, you're gonna have it towed or fix the
Yeah.
tire yourself because you can't drive it on a flat
Right,
tire. You
but-
ruin.
They get reimbursed for stuff like that if they have
Yeah.
a issue.
So there's been issues, and so this is a greater conversation we need to have. So we need
Okay.
Jeff, we need to figure out, work with him on his team. We've had people do that and destroy a piece of equipment in the road department because they didn't know the correct, I think it was a fuel filter or something like that. And, so had issues with it. I think we just need to ask Jeff what his protocol needs to be. I mean, he manages that motor pool. He needs to be able to set the policy and the direction for the rest of his team on what to do.
Jeff will be
We'll
in
ask
at
Jeff
11,
when
so
he'll be
we'll
there.
ask him on that
Okay.
when he comes at 11. But most cases, just try and handle it yourself if you can. If not, have it towed.
Okay.
We just need to.
It shoots all your day.
Again,
Yeah.
I'd like to
Simple
have
and
Jeff,
reimbursement.
I'd like to have Jeff have some kind of a policy in place for all of the employees that use those motor pool vehicles. So
Okay.
Write
it's all being
myself,
handled the same way.
write myself a note to ask Jeff that at 11.
That's pretty much all I've got. Oh, no, I got one more thing. I am gonna take the first week of May off. Before we get super busy, I can use up some time and hopefully not lose any more.
I thought you guys had two trucks, two cars.
We do. Mhm.
So
Tony,
the
that
other one
was
was
on-
here, just wasn't available.
Tony was on inspections and
Oh.
Jody she needed to do her deal, so she was using it for her job and just sharing it. So
Well, we might have to think about that too.
anyway, I just figured I'd ask you guys and see
Yeah.
what we
Okay.
should do. So, anyway,
Thank you.
That's all I got.
Okay.
Have a good day.
Skip texted in, he's not well today. Allison, are you doing for Melissa?
Yeah.
Okay, come on up. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
A little update for the Valley County Extension Office and 4-H programs. Successfully finishing several clinics. We've got short-term enrollment projects at the time. We did quilting on Friday, leathercraft on Saturday. Junior Master Gardeners is tomorrow. The archery shoot's going to be postponed because of weather. We thought we were going to get away with an early spring event, but that shut us down.
Summer's over, it's back to winter.
Yeah, it's back to winter. It's Valley County, right? So,
This is
but
second winter.
good programs afoot. The drone camps were really successful. They went really well. Approximately 16 kids we reached, and 5 hours that we spent at each day with them to teach them the different uses of drones and ag to commercial use today, and how to safely use them and control them. So that's good education out there. In that sense, we are looking at a fundraiser to do a yard sale. So we'll need permission to use the barn that the 4-H equipment is currently in for May 7th. And then May 14th, we have a grant from the Idaho Horse Board to do some clinics. And that gave us monies to bring in these instructors to help the youth. So that would be on May 14th. And so I'll need to work in conjunction with the road department or someone to help me get that arena ready.
I'm just gonna ask you, who's
Carl,
gonna
yeah.
disc up that arena?
Yep. And hopefully the timing is, it's Valley County once again, so we'll see. But usually by May, we can get in there. So
I
yeah,
know Jeff's
work
been
that.
doing that in the past with that disc.
He's been able to help us in the
And he
past, so
kind of
I'll ask him if
enjoys
it's
that.
possible.
If he's conflicted, he can't give me a call and I can come
Okay.
in and help too with that.
Okay.
All the stuff is there. I did go down and check the tractor and the spring toother, and we do need to find another disc. So that is an old horse-drawn disc,
Yeah.
and it's pretty bad shape.
Pretty old. Some of our equipment could be in a museum here in Valley County of the history of youth education out there. But so I guess on that note, we're just plugging away, and we're going to try to weigh in pigs here in a couple weeks. I really praise all those kids that go out and find breeders out in these different counties where it's warmer, and then bring them here, house them to keep them warm, to get them through these times when it's still cold, and get weight on them and keep them alive and well. So our kids do an outstanding job. We're at 108 kids now in our 4-H programs.
Awesome.
So year-round programming, and those numbers will keep moving, I think. So we're doing what we can to adapt and have some great volunteers and support. So I'm at 24 volunteers as well.
Awesome. Hey,
On your disc, I mean, one goes on the pack on the back of that tractor.
it's a 3-point. It's down there, kind of behind where the load chute and all that is, back in next to that fence. And it's what they call a white iron bearing machine. There's not bearings, they're just kind of steel that's round, and and if it doesn't turn when you pull it, you'll ruin it in about 2 minutes. So
I want to look for a new one.
I'm actually looking for another 3-point. I'm also looking for a loading chute. And I've been in discussion with some of the guys down below. Right now, you can't find a loading chute. They can make you one, but it's months out.
Yeah.
And they're started at $4,000 a piece.
They'll fab on demand or something. I saw online.
I wonder if the guy up in McCall would do it. McCall Metalworks? Do it as
There, I tell you what though, whew, you can go up to 12,000 on a loading chute if you want. And they have adjustable heights, so you can unload a trailer, or you can unload a semi, and it just depends on how much money you want to spend, I guess, but.
Maybe just getting the contract out, or maybe it is something we get next year, or it's out, but in this year use a portable.
Well, what I'm gonna try and do is find one and then maybe put a deposit down, then come back and get it approved through this group here and then go back and get it. And they're all towable, you pull them behind a pickup, but I'm working on it.
Here you go. The tent people got back to me
Oh, good.
for show tents. They have gone up 100% in
So,
rental.
What was this, Miss? I'm sorry, Miss.
So the show tents we use for the fair, we transform that road department into a fairgrounds, right? And we pull everything out of that steer barn and set everything up on the fairgrounds so that you can have different areas
Right.
to do the events. Well, we need an overhead covering, a show tent, and we rent those. It's usually 40 by 80, and it's almost $4,000 right now. And I'm negotiating if they do that, because they set it up as well, another tent with it so that we have a place to put the stage and the tables. So
Who are you negotiating with?
it's not Tate's anymore. It's Idaho Tents Rentals. I believe it's that.
I know Brian Hines looked into buying
That name
one.
would at least get you the Idaho.
Oh, we were
Tent.
thinking about buying our own and they're about $39,000.
Yeah, that and
Buy one.
setting those up. I don't even know if we want the liability of setting those up. That's the metal poles. That's like putting up a pole barn and taking it down,
Mhm.
So
Eventually,
Wow.
as that whole thing transitions, it could become a firm structure.
yeah.
And just a permanent structure there, but
On that note, I had some time after a Southern District meeting in Weiser to meet with the Fair Board and the folks that run the Washington County Fairgrounds in Cambridge and take a tour of their sites. They spent an hour and a half with me talking about how they slowly evolved over the 10 years. She said, that's all you need. Can you hang in there for 10? And they said I could reach out to them to talk to them about the different phases they went through. R&M Steel was a great supporter for them, for their roofs. I took lots of pictures of how that initial steel structure that they park all those RVs, they gross about $9,000 for parking RVs in the winter and turn it back into the fairgrounds. They have one building that's cement floored, kind of an expo building, nice kitchen area with restrooms in it. And they have a whole roller skating package, like with different rollers. So different clubs and kids come in. And she showed me the schedule that they have of people using that event center. And the calendar is just full. So just some really great ideas of how to use that shared space and have it.
Allison, did she tell you how much they charge to use it for a weekend?
I think that was anywhere from $100 to $250,
Okay.
depending on the services they need. And keep in mind, this is a brand new facility because they had iCrimp that helped them replace their buildings. They've had 2 insurance buildings where the roofs collapsed. So they've had. I keep thinking of how well they built those red barns. Only but that's where they've had a huge bit of help.
don't
too.
say that on tape in case.
Okay.
They
Okay,
burn
right.
down in the future.
I know.
So I'm gonna, so on your dates, we talked about who's gonna keep a calendar, but Jeremy, I'm gonna send an email request to do a fairground calendar. And I'm curious, Jeff had said maybe put it on the website and make it front facing so people would be able to interact with it and try and put events on there. I don't know if we're far enough along for that kind of technology, but at least letting the employees like 4-H and Extension put events on there. Scott, are you okay with that? And we'll figure out how to go from there, but at least we'll get something created because I do have
Just so you don't have that cross.
barrel
Yeah.
racing people that want to use it in
Mhm,
August.
I saw
So we've
that.
got to start getting some things on there.
Well, and I like the idea of the
are good.
webpage because then they know they got to get liability insurance. Here's the steps you got to go
It's
through.
available.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And when it's available and all that. So we
Like
don't.
that.
Brian did a
rec
great job
people
with
do
that.
for the
Yeah,
government
yeah,
stuff,
that
you know, what's
paperwork
available
and-
these days.
Yeah, and to not
Yeah.
have the double booking.
Okay,
Well, thank you very much.
all right, thank you. Jeremy,
Jeremy, while you're walking up there, would that be something Mackenzie would do, or do you want Tamara to work on that? Who would be the one to put it on the website and put some parameters around it and maybe have somebody create
Great
it within
question.
the
I think-
county and then market it differently?
Yeah, I think Tamara and McKinsey can work together to figure out what kind of platform to use,
Okay.
so that people can put events on it, and but somebody will for sure have to manage it,
We need to manage it.
so that if you just let, obviously we don't want just anybody to be able to put it, because people just be putting stuff on there.
Could you just please speak into that mic?
Oh, yes, sir.
I may be losing
I apologize.
my hearing here, but I just can't hear about half of you. And you.
So yeah, they can work together to figure out a platform to use to do that and figure out how to manage it so that.
I'll request one and we can figure it out from there, so.
Okay,
okay,
all right.
Okay, thanks.
Morning.
morning.
Jeremy Wilcox, IT Director. Our biggest focus for the last week was getting the jail moved, all of their equipment moved from the pod to their little medical room, which we got everything. It's kind of tight in there and cramped, but we got everything in there and all of their functions work. We're able to get their intercoms in there. We're able to get their cameras in there. We're able to get their doors in there. There was some question on whether we're going to be able to do that or not, but we were able to get that all in there.
Great.
So that was
And then we start gutting here this week. Well, we'll ask him when he comes up.
yeah. Hopefully, we have one little hiccups. The cell blocks telephones, they all coalesce behind that wraparound piece. So I have somebody gonna hopefully come in this week and see what it's gonna take to move that, because we'll have to move that before we can start demoing, because everything goes through there. If we pull it all out, then all the phones will stop working. So that's our only kind of hiccup right now.
So does that affect your, what's the word that, the online with their attorney? What do I want to say, with the TV and they can do stuff?
Yeah, so we gave them a laptop, and they're going to temporarily do the in custody stuff and the medical stuff in their, they call it programs, in their little library area. So we got them a laptop this morning to do that.
Okay. Still can happen.
Still can happen, yes.
Good work.
Thanks. And I did have one action item. Steve Anderson had requested one of the Verizon trackers be put on his milfoil boat to help him in the summer to see where that contractor's spending the most time and help supplement his data and kind of also, I think, to kind of keep everybody honest. So
I think that's a great idea because it's kind of an unwatched contract.
mhm.
And I think that's appropriate. In fact, I'll make the motion we authorize the GPS tracking device for weed department.
A second it.
Moved and second. Any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
One thing I question on that milfoil boat, and maybe this would be a direct reflection of that, but waterways, can they pay for any of that kind of stuff?
We get grant funds through Department of Ag, I think, for most of that. Don't we, Doug?
Okay.
What is that? Where do we get the money for the milfoil stuff?
That's correct.
Okay, perfect. Never mind then.
Where do we get it?
From
Department of
Department of Ag.
Okay.
And they also have programs for the quagga mussel. If you ever get quagga mussels, they have a whole bunch of funding for that. And a lot of that, honestly, is thanks to Terry Gestrin. He got that done years ago.
No, I'm fine. We just need to fix
So
this. This is crazy.
yeah, awesome. Thanks.
I'm trying to look through 5 people.
Wanted to,
I mean,
I let him know going forward the cost so he can put it in his budget
Good.
moving forward. So it's in there. But since this program wasn't officially in the budget this year, I just wanted to make sure that everybody was okay with it before I got another one.
So where did we pay for those others? Did we take that out of PILT?
I don't remember, Mr. Miller. Do you recall
So
where we decided to fund that
did we
from?
take those out of PILT?
No.
Where did we get that?
not the annual cost, we don't.
It was was it $40 a month or something? 30.
I don't think they're that much.
They're $17.99 a month per
Okay.
per device.
I might be thinking
So-
of groomers.
You'd have to budget about $300 a year for his specific device.
Well, just make sure we get that in the budget next year, you and him both. It's the worst part is when you forget something. Hey, anything else?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask a letter or a question of maybe a little clarification on this as well. We're talking about our weed department, you know, and I know maybe that's not an ID department, maybe another department should be talking about, but we're talking about the weed department taking care of milfoil, and now we got a waterways. And is there any kind of correlation? You asked a good question there. Do we get any money through that for, you know, because it seems to me like it's kind of, there's got to be some sort of a interest in waterways and this milfoil thing. And I know at the same time, now we got noxious weeds. That makes a lot of sense too.
And see,
But-
Eurasian milfoil is considered a noxious weed.
Right, I
That's why
understand.
the weed department handles it or
Yeah.
takes that on.
But we have to now, in order for us to do that, and I'm going to this, is like, does Waterways have any kind of equipment that they use, like this, you know, water-based equipment? And all this is this contracts, most of the milfoil? So they would bring their own equipment for this.
Right.
Essentially,
And I think it's $24,000 a year.
yeah. So we're being asked to put some technological equipment on our equipment or contractors'
It's our
equipment?
boat.
I think we own
yeah.
the boat.
We own the
We-
He brings the rest of his equipment for his diving and whatever he needs to do. But the
Right.
boat itself is ours, if I'm not mistaken.
I know we fixed the engine last year.
I know
It's
we-
a barge.
Sheriff's Department has some stuff, but we have a barge.
We have a barge and we had to put a
Right.
new motor on it last year.
I've seen the barge around out there,
Right.
you know, so,
And then we have a policy too, that any IT stuff has to go through Jeremy.
right, I understand. That makes
And-
sense, so.
And it's
Yeah.
it's really separate from waterways. Waterways, I think, is more
Mhm.
dealing with sheriff's deputies and sheriff boats and that kind of stuff, buoys.
Right.
And this is a little different. This is the weed guy's responsibility.
So have we considered, or are we headed in the direction of maybe a standalone weed department? I understand this is still under the road department?
The road department is their supervisor, mainly because it's based out of Gold Dust, out at the county shops out there. But a lot of the weed departments in Idaho are under the road department because they spray a lot of the roads, county roads.
Right.
And Jeff's always been Steve's supervisor. It's just the way we've kind of done it. You can also levy for weeds. It's a little bit different. But most of the weed department stuff is funded through Department Ag.
Agriculture, yeah.
There's not a lot of costs, some, but
So anyway, I know that we're challenged in every area, and roads is a big one.
Mhm.
And my question is that where that should stay? And I'm thinking, at least, you know, weeds is a big deal, and I'm thinking we're not gaining much on it personally. You know,
Well-
it's some, but we're, you know.
the big
it's,
issue, honestly, I think with weed department is we can't get help, part-time summer help.
That's it,
And
and
so we've looked at that
Yeah.
salary, we've tried to bump it up more and more, and so we can attract those kind of guys, but
so there may be
last year he
some,
had 4, and I don't know if we got maybe 2 hired this year yet.
have we looked into contracts for this kind of stuff? I mean, that seems to me like that we're doing it almost everywhere. We just had
Well-
that contract discussion, you know.
I know our weed department contracts with the cities to do their weed control. They contract a lot with Forest Service, Bureau Rec, BLM
Mhm.
to spray weeds on there. But really, there's just not enough people in that department to do all of it.
That's why the question is it something that maybe we need to broaden their perspective of that a little bit and look for people that specialize in that sort of thing and start,
Well, there used to
Yeah.
be what they call private guys that would come out and you could hire someone to come out and spray your weeds for you. Down in the valley, they're all over, but we don't have them up here. And it's such a short season, they just can't seem to make it. But
their season would vary some with theirs.
I think it's
But,
a great question. I think we
Yeah,
can have Steve come in and sit down and talk about it and see, you know, what it would take to make it a standalone.
because I think personally, I'd like to see progress made in that area. And and I know I've talked to Steve and I've talked to other people. Yeah, I mean, we spray knapweed from the time you can see it till the time the snow buries it in winter. And I don't know if we're being really effective in some of that part, and so it seems like an area where we really do need to focus on a specific time frame, maybe 5 or 6 weeks.
So what I
You
might
know.
suggest is get with Doug and Steve and get him on the agenda and have him come in and let's spend some time with him and we could talk about it. And
It's
is there another way we could attack this?
a tough one,
Yeah,
I think.
it is. It is.
I think the toughest part is managing and controlling, maybe regulating the individual parcels that are not doing weed mitigation, that are just privately held ground. We actually have the right to
We do.
give them a fine, and I don't know how much that's happening, but
You can go in and
Think
spray
it's
it
ever
and
happened.
charge them for that cost.
Yeah, but have we ever done that?
That
That's a
is
good
really,
question.
to me, is based on how strong your prosecutor is.
Yeah.
so let's put it on an agenda item.
or you gotta
because
make a-
Jeremy's going, this has nothing to do with
Right,
IT.
right,
So we
that's
kind of
okay.
took a squirrel.
I
and
know.
let's go
Squirrel.
I'm sorry.
Back to today's
okay.
agenda and get it on an agenda. So
But Jeremy, he's got the real wherewithal. He's got the technology.
Yep.
yes, we tell him how important it is, but
Yeah.
just don't tell him to his face.
And Jeremy, do we have GPS monitors on Steve's land sprayers? So we
No,
could
we
go
don't.
and see where he has
No,
sprayed?
I believe that he has a specific device
Oh, does he?
that he's utilizing
To mark that.
to mark that. Yes,
Okay.
I don't know what product it is. I don't think it's the Garmin, but I do believe that he does have a GPS system in place that is functioning to provide an overview of where they are currently spraying. Again, it would be best if Steve presented that.
Yeah. Kara built them an application to keep track of the weeds, so we might be using the tablets the GPS on the tablets to do that as they're out there doing their thing. So
So I think, that's very appropriate, Ed, hey, let's get him in here and let's have that discussion.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm not.
Yeah.
I just
No.
it's
There's
just
nothing wrong with asking questions. And try and figure it out because it's been a challenge.
Yeah.
Hey, anything else for Jeremy? I guess you're off the hook.
all right, thank you very much.
Cinda. Good morning, sunshine. Big day today.
Oh, a couple final plats. I only have 15 minutes. So, we have busy agendas with the Planning and Zoning Commission. This Thursday, we have the Gold Fork Reserve, Schaefer subdivision, that's the one at the log yard. And then we have a vacation, a single rental of an RV, and then a 4-lot subdivision. Oh, and then Tamarack has another subdivision coming in, 17 lots. And that's spread out into some lots along West Mountain Road and then a couple that are accessing off Discovery Drive. But those will come to you.
Is that subdivision part of their PUD or is these new?
That one is going to have to come to you
Okay, so
Also,
these are new
as a
developments.
second, right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of wrapping around the golf course on the east side.
When I read the minutes from Lori or that agenda in the paper, it looked to me like it was coming right down on West Mountain Road there south of the turnaround.
Yes.
So I'm thinking, well, maybe we need to talk about getting the road improved over there.
Yes, especially, it's between the employee housing and the roundabout.
Right.
So I think that they do have plans to make some improvements there, but we can't pave or anything like that until those culverts are repaired. But that's that road conversation.
Right.
That one that's back off Gold Fork, it's buried back in there a bit, isn't it?
You go north, if you take Davis Creek, go across the bridge and then head north, it's right next to the Milk Can subdivision, just north of the Milk Can subdivision. It's kind of in between two other subdivisions.
And that's all gravel out there too.
The road?
Yeah.
Gravel road.
And is
Gold
any
Fork.
of that on Gold Fork, is that in the floodplain?
They have a little bit on the other side of the road, but they're not developing any of it.
Okay.
And it has the base flood elevations determined
Oh,
on
it's
it
got them
already.
already. Yeah, fees are done. That's all I wanted to know.
Yep,
Okay.
they're done in that area. I did, the piece there at the corner of Farm to Market and Patty Flat. She sent me her letter of map amendment information today, which is not base flood elevations. So we're gonna have to have that conversation.
Yeah, that's about where we stopped, wasn't it?
Yes, that she
Yeah.
needed to get the base flood elevations done before they could split that property. I haven't read through all of the documentation from FEMA, but it looked like a LOMA to me and not a BFE. Let's see, and we also have a special meeting April 19th. That's one of our work sessions. The fire departments are coming to talk to the Planning and Zoning Commission about, things that they want to see changed in our ordinance, review how the fire management plans have been working. And then they'll assist us in determining type of subdivision in the future. I mean, which ones need fire code roads, which one need, Valley County standard roads, which ones, are fine to plat without any of that. That's the conversation for that night.
So Cinda, I have a question I need to ask Jeff when he gets in here, but we have been talking about the 5 different types of roads and developing that final agreement on what is a county standard road, substandard, the 5 different levels.
Oh, the A, B, C, D, E?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Have you seen a final, okay, so that needs to be finalized. Because that's part of that conversation. I mean, the fire department can have input on what that looks like and should have input on what that looks like. But I will ask Jeff where we are on that.
I have not seen that. And then we have our special public hearing scheduled for May 5th on the manufactured home park. That will be coming to you also. So. And then
We
maybe
know that's gonna be coming to us also.
as a PUD, you'll have your own public hearing.
It's a PUD.
Oh, it's a
Yeah.
PUD.
The P and Z Commission will make a recommendation.
Okay.
But they scheduled the special meeting so that they could completely focus on the PUD. Because historically, we get into it and it's like, oh, we need a special meeting for this. So we just did it ahead of time.
So with knowing how much conversation there is in the community, are you going to make sure that you get signups and make sure that this facility is large enough for this meeting?
I don't know who's going to show up. People don't have to sign up to come to the public hearing.
I am concerned that this room will be large enough, so you and I have had that conversation. Where do we normally go? We go to the American Legion if it's a larger conversation?
If we think it's going to get large.
Okay.
The only time we've ever had to go down there was with Tamarack in Jug Mountain and the Highway 55 Scenic Corridor and Kelly's Whitewater Park were basically the ones.
I think we might.
No, I haven't received a lot of comments. Just because it's on social media doesn't mean that people are actually going to show up and participate. So if it's not big enough, they'll have to take their turn coming to the mic. So, I'd hate to, I don't have YouTube at the Legion Hall. I don't have any of that stuff.
That's what I'm saying. We need to maybe prepare ourselves for that eventuality.
Well,
There's a lot of concern and requests out on social media to show up at that meeting.
okay.
So, see how
Yeah,
many
you'll
people
have
start commenting.
We'll have to talk to Jeremy about how are we going to broadcast on YouTube from different areas.
Okay.
That's something I think IT would take care of. I don't have cameras and
I'm sorry, guys, I had
Audio.
to step out. Which meeting are you talking about? The workshop with?
no,
McCall.
this is the 201 manufactured homes
Oh,
and whether or not this will be large enough. This holds a lot of people.
well, we can always run But like when we had the COVID restrictions where you come in and give your testimony and then you have to leave and the next person comes in too, so.
But we need to have some sort of a system outside where they can hear. In other words, why come here unless you have the benefit of listening and debating with other people? And,
This facility was large enough for the Tamarack meetings, the typical ones.
How long ago was that?
so
2000 to 2005.
A lot more people up here now, but
Well, Cindy, you've got probably the best ear to the ground on that one. If you think that this meeting room will manage it, we're probably okay. You've always done that in the past where you know what the interest from the public of actually coming in and commenting.
They had a special neighborhood meeting
Yeah.
up at Tamarack, which answered a lot of people's questions, I think.
you know how many showed up for that?
They had about 30 in the room and about 42 on the Zoom.
So I'm just
So-
saying, we might want to facilitate a Zoom that night or, do something else if you feel like you are getting a lot of people that are going to show up, but we'll see.
You've been able to handle it in the past, I'm sure it'll
We
work out.
have.
Yeah.
I don't know that we have Zoom. We'd have to do the MS Teams. A lot of people don't have MS Teams.
They don't have to participate. They just have to call and get the link.
For MS Teams? Okay. But we haven't noticed it that way. I haven't had a lot of people commenting. I mean, I probably have 5 to 10 comments.
Okay. Well,
It's
always
been out there
but-
for a couple of weeks.
Okay, anything else?
Oh, May 12th is looking pretty benign. We've got a contractor, an outdoor market, and a bakery. Anything for me?
Bakery and an outdoor market.
Cool.
It's kind of chilly today to be outdoor marketing.
Yeah, well, it's,
Big tent.
flea market shut down. Now they want to do something not that size, but just a few tents.
They actually shut the flea market down now, Cindy? Oh.
Down here.
And so this is something to kind of replace that you're talking
Yeah,
about?
just a couple of those fleas.
Yeah.
Want
Okay.
to put up a,
Did you say a couple of those fleas?
That's what they're called.
that's what they're
you.
called.
Okay,
So, okay?
thank you. Mr. Laxon. Good morning.
I'd almost like to say Merry Christmas, but
No.
this is kind of fun.
Second winter.
This is kind of fun.
Yeah. Oh, in a way, you wouldn't believe the calls I get from people wanting to know, are we grooming this or are we grooming that? So we're in the middle of spring maintenance. Wellington is finished. Cascade is finished, except we've got 4 belts to replace, and they're going to take 3 or 4 days to finish those. I'll get a whole crew on that. Started the Donnelly Cat today. That'll just take a day or so. And then we'll get into the McCall equipment. That's about 2 weeks worth of work. It's going about as normal as it always does. We had to replace belts on a Cat up north in McCall last year. And this year, I'm surprised it wasn't worse. With as much as we groomed on ice, I'm surprised we didn't have more damage. Unfortunately, I will tell you just real quickly, we lost both of our maintenance guys this year, and we had one guy step up and is really doing a fantastic job. That's Rich Webb. So Rich and Danny and Rod Rosenew's a brand new guy, and he's learning some of the maintenance stuff this year. But it's just awesome to have the guys step up like that. I really appreciate it. Meetings, we had a BFC meeting. I would love to tell you what we accomplished in that.
We didn't accomplish anything.
Like I said, I would love to share what we accomplished in it.
Accomplished anything?
Cougar Mountain Club meeting. And by the way, the Cougar Mountain Club paid $3,500 to have their fuel tank filled. And they also bought some tools for the shed down there, which is pretty awesome of them. They're really stepping up. They've got a lot of new guys, young kids running the club now. And boy, you don't see that very often anymore, seeing the young people step up. And that's been kind of a goal that I think we've all been working towards, getting a lot more of the younger people to do volunteer work. All the fuel tanks are filled up. I think I shared with you guys already, I've talked to the club presidents about providing a critter cam, putting it on the fuel tanks, just because, just the Francie Wallace tank, we've got $10,000 of fuel sitting in it. And there's really nobody out there. So keep an honest person honest all the time. I don't really think anybody'd steal it, but it's always best to be safe.
And Larry, it's all locked up and secured. Obviously,
we've-
somebody'd have to cut a lock off.
Yeah, locks are as good as a pair of Harbor Freight cutters, but yeah, it is.
So in the construction world, they give us those round ones and they're
Yes.
really hard to cut
A lot
off.
harder, yeah. And so Harbor Freight came up with a real thin cutter with harder teeth on it, so it cuts a lot easier. But it's not just the lock area; it's the fill up areas. They can put a pump, drop a pump down into it, or I don't think anything's going to happen. Just better safe than sorry. United Payette, our contract is still at the AG's office. I'll be honest with you, I don't expect anything back very soon. And I talked to some of the guys at United Payette, and they kind of feel the same way. We're kind of in that limbo land right now until some decisions are made.
Larry, can you explain real quick what United Payette?
United Payette is a group of citizens out of McCall and actually all around the state. And they put together a plan to lease a lot of the areas around the lake, the impact areas around the lake that were actually part of that Trident land exchange. Well, they want to provide enough funds so that the IDL doesn't have to show that they need to get rid of it. They're making money off of it. They've actually raised, if I remember correctly, $8,000. I think the leases were $4,000 a year, and they're paying for it. But the county would, we're going to be the managers of the lease. It's,
You need to add a zero.
I would be happy to send you a copy of the lease too.
Yeah,
Our attorney's gone through it, the commissioner's gone through it, and these guys are some pretty awesome people that have put this together. They've been fun to work with. I'll be happy when we finish it. I'm also looking at, and I ordered one, I would like to change all the locks on the Grimmer Garage out to mechanical digital locks. Because every year it seems, we've got keys that go missing, and we've got new employees, and we're buying keys constantly. It'd be nice that every year we'll just change the combination on the lock, simplify the whole issue. Project we're working on. I talked to Elle a little bit about it, and I've talked to Commissioner Moppin, and just maybe a little bit is the FAA road. We have the maps in hand. I talked to Commissioner Paradis over in Adams County, because one thing this road does do is it goes in and out of, it goes up Valley County into Adams County, back to Valley County, over to Adams County. So I'm trying to arrange a meeting between Commissioner Paradis and Commissioner Hasbrook wanted to be involved in it. And we'll look at the maps, we'll make a decision, and then bring it back to the board to make a decision if you guys want to declare this an RS 2477. And then at the same time, I've listed a bunch of potential recreational access properties that are historical roads the county should own, but have been closed by either private property or IDL or the Forest Service. And we'll start bringing you guys those. And so we can look at declaring those in RS 2477.
And I think, Larry, on this one, the FAA road, you might get a letter from, I can't think of his name now.
I've got it written down in there.
So that we can have that as backup support.
Yeah, and I was going to ask them also if this does end up getting litigated, if they'd help with the litigation too.
Good.
You can always try to get the cost someplace else.
This is the old Council Mountain Road.
It is. I tell you, that map, if you guys ever get a chance, it's laid out on where my new employee is going to be working temporarily. And you should really look at it. I didn't realize how many little schools we used to have all through that area. Underneath that lake, there's schools, there's cities, there's all sorts of things that historically, it's a good thing to look at so your mind just understands a little bit more about that land and the people up there. Any other questions?
So the RS 2477, are you gonna so you're putting together a list of those roads? I'm just wondering about a workshop on that, or so you're just gonna give us the list? I'm wondering how we proceed with that. Because I think that's a huge
Yeah.
opportunity.
So I've been thinking, so we've actually had the list before, the commission before, and it kind of got set off to the side in a decision. So we do have the list made. I have added another one to it because for some reason, I didn't realize Smiley from Cascade to Gold Fork had been closed. And I think that's a slam dunk as an RS-2477, but I haven't done the research on that myself. I've seen the research on Flat Creek. I've seen the research on Oak Barn, Packer John, 60 Lane, and a few others. But I will do that. I'll make a whole list of them and send them to you guys. And if you guys want to prioritize them, if you feel that necessity, that's fine. It's just time to take them off the bench and put them back in the field of play.
And if, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that kind of works is we declare this an RS-2477. If it gets challenged by the private landowners and we end up in court, in the past, what we've done is hired an outside attorney, Fritchley. I can't remember the guy's name.
I've had some conversations.
And he's helped us fight him in court.
I've had conversations with Okie, but being a non-legal guy, he confuses me a lot.
Well, I think that's what I'm asking is what's that process moving forward?
Yeah.
Is it going to be an in-house, does Brian think that we can do this in-house or we're going to have to hire legal counsel? I mean, we don't want to start down this path unless we know the direction we're headed and use the correct legal counsel.
I think that'll be part of that conversation, that meeting, because right now Adams County has hired an attorney just to handle that, and they're in the process of certifying a whole bunch of RS-2477s. So we can have that conversation in that meeting with Commissioner Paradis and have a bigger idea of what's going on.
So then let's get that attorney's contact information and make contact to see if he would be interested in helping us on this side. We spent money on this in the past. I think one of the RS was
Yes, we have.
$21,000 or $22,000 in attorney fees, but it's worth it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the question I have is, do we want to throw that back on Brian Okie or do we want to get some outside? And we leave that call up to Brian, or Brian, so.
I think that's their call on what we need.
Great, and I think it's great you're going after these, Larry. That's time, I think we need to make a final decision on
Yes.
Anderson Creek and get that in on our books too. So,
Yeah, and I will say that after talking with the Forest Service says that road they own the road. And the attorney for the owner of that property up there was right. They own the ground underneath the road. But that road itself is a Forest Service road.
Right.
And so that made me feel a little confident, especially since they gave us the further easement on that. But yeah, we can include that if you'd like to.
Well, it's time to start
Get her done.
going back.
Thank you.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, anything else for Larry?
Can we take a 5-minute break?
Yep, we'll take a quick break and then we'll come back and do buildings and grounds.
Go ahead.
Thanks, man.
Go take